information, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you?
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to And I Quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to content creators of all shapes and sizes that join us from any and all corners of the nerd universe, and we take your questions. I am your host, Ryan, and our guest this week is veteran comic book writer and editor, a legend, and a member of the Crazy 8 press team. Please welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Paul Kupperberg. Paul, welcome to the program. How are you?
Good, Ryan. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, good sir, and thank you so much for being with us. Now, if you have any questions for Paul Kupperberg during any portion of the show, let us know in the live chat. Let us know in the comments. Our producers are going to be keeping an eye on that as you go throughout the course of the show. But in the meantime, Paul, what would you say were some of your favorite books or writers growing up?
Wow, there were so many. I mean, I started reading comics around 1960, 61. I was looking at them for years before. They were always around the house. I had an older brother and an uncle who was only about 10 years older than me. So, all this stuff was around. Originally it was, the legends of the early 60s at DC, Kurt Swan and Andrew Esposito and guys like that. And then in the mid 70s was Neil Adams came along. And, Neil just died the other day after an illness, and it's kind of I actually remember the very first Neil Adams comic book cover I ever saw, and my reaction to it. It was 1967, and it was Action Comics number 356, and it was an image of this kid in motorcycle leathers, the whole Marlon Brando Wild Bunch. With the leather cap and all this, and he's punching the Washington Monument, and while Superman has his father, the Annihilator, holding him in cuffs, and the kid is going, let go my father, Superman, or I'll do this to you, or something like that. But it was the first superhero cover Neil had ever done in comics, and I just happened to. My father had stopped the car in front of the candy store, and I jumped out to get him a pack of cigarettes because it was the 1960s, and you sent your 12-year-old in to buy you cancer sticks. But anyway, I saw this comic on the newsstand, and it's just like I was already a reader and a budding collector and fan. But this thing just like this art just was like nothing. It was like Kurt Swan amped up to photorealism. It was just it was beautiful stuff. Was a fan from that day, and later in the early 70s as a kid. I was lucky enough to, my brother worked in his Continuity Associates for a while before they became mortal enemies. So I got to know him when I was just a teenager, and he's always the nicest guy to me. He and my brother didn't get along, but he didn't let that interfere with the relationship. He was a sweet. I always found him to be a sweetheart, and I'm going to miss him.
Absolutely, yeah. Rest in peace to the legend himself, Neil Adams, legend amongst legends. Wrote so many, been a part of so many stories, so many characters, so many covers, so many images. Yeah. So
no, his stuff was just. I mean, there were two guys at that point in comics who were just knocking your eyeballs out, and that was Neil and Steranko, and and Jim, while incredible and impressive, he only did like 28 comic books, in his entire career. Yeah, I mean, really, he did very few comics. He was in and out within the span of a few years, and had moved on to don't have that skeptical look. I know what I'm talking about. And
I'm just surprised at 28 issues. 28 issues. That's
and then
what I'm
he
saying.
went on to all those cover paintings, and brilliant artist, and he wrote two of the best comic book histories ever published. Steranko's History of Comics. Great guy, but he was just there for a couple of years, and Neil You know, he was long haul, man. He started in '67, and he was going till the day he died. So, pretty damn impressive. That's part of the kind of the shock. Is I always thought of most of us. You see this online, and we're going, Neil can't die. He's a bull. He's a force of nature. You know, and that's I think why it's so it hit a lot of people so hard.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I saw a few stories being shared across social media about how Neil Adams has, touched so many lives and so many stories of the fans and people who have worked alongside him and all that jazz. So it's a lot of stories, and it is an unfortunate loss. So.
And it was something so simple. I used to see him at the Terrific Con here in Connecticut every year, we talk and all that. And I went by his table. This was, I guess, in 2017. And he said, so, how's it going for you? I'm going, all right. It's better than ever. I put this tip jar on the table. So when I do autographs, and he said, tip jar? He said, artists don't get tipped. Artists get paid. And I went, oh, shit, you're right. And I went back and I took the tip jar off the table. And I said, it's not a tip. Pay me, But it was like, wow, what? It was nothing. It was just a throwaway. And it's just like, you're right. You're right. I'm not dignifying this enough. But that was him. He was always, he was a guy, he was a fighter. He was a fighter for rights and for creators. And screw the companies.
There you go. If anyone has a story or a memory or a particular thing that they enjoyed most about Neil Adams' work, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the live chat. We would love to hear from you. Make sure you're sharing this with all 200 of your closest friends. You're going to like the way you look after watching or listening to this episode of And I Quote. I guarantee it. So with that being said, Paul, when did you decide to become a writer?
I don't know. It was always, there was no conscious moment where I said, I must do this. I was just doing it. I have, my comic books I wrote and drew from, 1964 or so. I'm 9 years old, and I was already starting to write stories. They were awful. They made no sense. There was nothing to them. But still, I was out there trying to figure it out. And I have a whole, a stack of self-made comic books from that time, with everything from Batman and Daredevil and Hulk to Star Trek and Rescue 8, which was a bad syndicated TV show from the 1950s that I liked. That was in reruns when I was a kid. So, but yeah, I was always there. I was just always writing and always, I gave up drawing after a while because I just, it was fun, but it wasn't productive. I wasn't good. I wasn't very good at it. So, but yeah, I always kept writing and just, I didn't know if I'd ever be paid as a writer, but I knew I would always be writing.
Oh, there you go. A friend of yours, Brian K. Morris of Rising Tide Publication, says, good afternoon, Ryan, and hi, Paul. Brian K.
Brian,
Morris
how you doing? Oh, he can't talk to me. He's
more than welcome to chime in via the chat, but yeah, he can't verbally speak with us. But it's good to see you, Brian K. Morris. Take another shot, my friend. We're playing your drinking game every time we drop the BKM. So that's his initials, just to point that out. But even so, what would you say are some of the biggest rewards about being a writer here, Paul?
I don't know, just being able to tell your story, or your stories, whatever it is. In the comic book, in the comic book part of that, it's being able to tap into and connect with all these characters that I grew up and loved and meant so much to me. I mean, Superman, when I was growing up as a kid, Superman wasn't just a thing I liked. Superman was a life boy to me. I did not have a happy childhood. I did not grow up under the best of circumstances. But I always had comic books to turn to. I could always find an escape in those. So Superman was the first superhero I really connected with. I used to see the cartoons, the 1940s Fleischer cartoons were shown on this kid show that I watched just before bedtime. I saw these cartoons and went to sleep and dreamed of Superman, and then one day we were in the candy store around the corner, Flemy's Candy Store on St. John's Place in Brooklyn. And there was, I looked up from at the newsstand, And there was that same guy, except he was in, red and blue and yellow because it was 1960 and we had black and white TV. But it was still the same guy. And, there it was. I discovered it, made my father part with a dime, which wasn't an easy thing to do. But he was a lovely man, but he was tight. He was tight with the money. But whatever. He's a depression baby. I don't know why I brought that up. Anyway,
No, it's okay. It's okay. Brian K. Morris chimes in. He says, "It's good to see you, Paul. I can talk, but I know I won't get the last word in," he says.
You know that, yeah.
Brian K. Morris. Goodness gracious, what a character that man is. I'll tell you what. And if you want to know more about Brian K. Morris, make sure you visit risingtide.pub and find out more about the projects that he has going on and the past stuff and some of he's done. He's done an amazing job.
Yeah, Brian's a good guy.
He really is. Although I can't get over the fact that he still wears a fez 35 years later. But you know what? That's a Whovian thing. So let the Doctor Who fans do their thing. It's no worries. Oh, speaking of fezzes, Paul Kupperberg is holding one up now. So there you go.
I mean, don't mock the fez.
No, I'm sorry. It's just I'm not, I'm just not used to always seeing it, but it's cool because, hey, if you want to stand out from a crowd or stick out like a sore thumb, in Brian K. Morris's case, you wear the fez and a bow tie, BKM. See what I did there?
Or maybe you just want to be a Shriner.
Maybe? I'm not sure. I'll let
You
someone
have
else.
no idea what that is, do you? So it's all right.
We'll let someone else determine that for us. But even so, once again, we're talking with veteran comic book writer and editor Paul Kupperberg of Crazy A Press. Make sure you're sharing this with all 300 of your friends, and also if you have any questions for Paul, let us know in the live chat. Let us know in the comments. We're going to keep it on as we go throughout the course of the show. But on the flip side of things here, Paul, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges about being a writer?
Keeping it fresh. It's easy, especially in comic books. It's easy to kind of fall into a routine and a rut with characters. You're doing the same guy every month, and if you stop looking for the challenging way to approach him, the character, you're doomed. Even I hear people, these days say, well, they just don't know what to do with Superman. And I don't even know what that sentence means. How could you not know what to do with Superman? You just go back to the TV show from the 50s. It's right there in the opening in the opening monologue. Truth, justice, and the American way. You're done. Do that guy. But whatever. I don't think that's I don't think flawless people are much of a sell these days. Comic book heroes have to be, broken and dark.
With some of the recent entries within comic book movie franchise, specifically The Batman that just came out recently, there's another example. Dark and gritty.
Well, movies are one thing. They're two separate things.
Well, very true. Very true.
People come up to, they tell me they're comic book fans, and when I ask them what comics they read, they say, no, I watch the movies. Then you're a comic book movie fan. You're not a comic book fan, because they are two totally separate things. Whatever happens in the movies, your comic books are still there, unchanged. Don't worry about it. It's just a movie.
Yeah. Yes, and they're also very loose adaptations of characters and storylines, so it's not a word-for-word, panel-for-panel from the comic that's being translated into the film. That's not true at all. They do certain adaptations, and they take bits and pieces from different stories and incorporate them into the film, but that doesn't mean it's a direct adaptation. I mean, seriously, I can go back and read Kingdom Come all I want, but if they ever make a film adaptation of it, I'll still go and see it, but at the same time, it's not going to be the same thing as reading the paperback by Mark Waid and Alex Ross. That's a different story.
And also, I wrote the Peacemaker miniseries back in the 1980s that a lot of what James Gunn did in the Suicide Squad and TV show, Peacemaker TV show, was based on. It's not a direct, one-for-one transfer of these things. My series, it was done in the 80s in a different time and climate. And, I think the reason DC hasn't reprinted it is because it's kind of inappropriate for these days. You know, it's just I don't think it would be accepted kindly. It's just, you know, a lot of Middle Eastern terrorist stuff and you know, an Asian supervillain, and you know, it's just kind of, I don't think it would translate into modern, you know, into the current climate. But what he did do was take the situations, transfer them, and you know, it's still the same. The relationships between the characters are still the same, even though the circumstances are different. You know, so in the comic book miniseries, his father, the father who tormented him, was dead and a voice in his helmet, and had been a Nazi concentration camp guard. You know, 1980. You know, you could still get away with that in the 80s. I don't think they like mentioning Nazis anymore, do they? Are they like just not bad enough anymore, or what? I don't get it. But it's like, there's worse. I mean, you know. But anyway, and in the TV show, his father had been a supervillain, was alive for the first season, and then at the end, he shows up as a ghost to still, you know, bust Christopher Smith's chops. So it's not a one-for-one correlation of circumstances, but the relationships are the same, you know. So, and that's fine, because again, what I wrote wouldn't work in the 2022 market, you know, which is fine.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Brian K. Morris chimes in saying, thanks, Ryan, for the plugs from earlier. And he also says, yes, Paul, as if I couldn't respect you any more than I do. Anyway, put the spotlight back on Paul, will you? I'm lurking now.
Don't make me put on my fez.
It's one thing after another with this character. But even so, how did you end up becoming a part of the team known as Crazy 8 Press? How did that come about?
It was just, you know, a bunch of my friends were already part of that group, and one of the original founders had dropped out, and you know, just they said, who's going to fall for this? Oh, Kupperberg. And they asked me to join. It's, you know, Crazy 8 Press is like a publishing hub. You know, we all publish independently. We do our own stuff. You know, nobody has to approve anything of anybody else's. We do anthologies where all of us work together on common themes or stories, and also have outside writers come in and, you know, fill out the books. But you know, so it's just an opportunity. Crazy 8 is now 10 people, but you know, it's you magnify your voice by 10, you know, your presence by 10 if you've got partners all pushing the same, you know, a publishing name, even if we're all doing our own stuff.
Absolutely. And congratulations to you and the team at Crazy 8 Press. I've read some of the books here and there, some of the anthologies that you and the other members of the team and other writers have taken part in. I'm digging what I'm reading. So crazy8press.com. Make sure you look them up. They got a great team of people over there. That is for darn sure. It's it up. There we go now.
There we go. This is my latest from Crazy 8 Press. The Devil and Leo Persky. It's Leo Persky is a reporter for the well, I used to work for the Weekly World News. This is the World Weekly News, so it's totally different. There's no relationship whatsoever. He's a reporter in a world in which every story that the Weekly World News prints, you know, Batboy and Bigfoot and Elvis sightings, is true. And he's their lead reporter. So this is a collection of 6 stories, previously published stories, and a new novella, The Devil and Leo Persky. So that's my latest contribution.
Fantastic. Congratulations on that. Definitely visit crazy8press.com and find out more information about that and all the other cool stuff that the team is doing over there. Now, to take a step back just for a moment into the Wayback Machine, I want to bring up some of your past, just a few of your past works here. And I just want to, curious to hear your experiences writing for these characters or these series, what have you. This one right here, The Phantom Stranger by Paul Kupperberg, Mike Mignola, and company. What was it like writing for The Phantom Stranger?
For me, it was intimidating. I love The Phantom Stranger. It was one of those characters from the 60s that his first appearance was in an issue of Showcase in the 60s. And it was mainly reprints of the 1950s mystery series called The Phantom Stranger. But there was new framing devices drawn by, I think it was Jerry Grandinetti and Bill Drought or something like that. But anyway, I saw the character, fell in love, and just followed it throughout. And there was some awesome runs of the character in the 70s, with Jim Aparo and Len Wein and Paul Levitz and Jerry Teleyak and all these guys. So it was a great character. At some point, why did I go to Phantom? Oh, well, yeah, I guess it was just like, nobody was doing anything with the character. And I didn't write up a pitch. I went to Denny O'Neil originally and pitched it to him. And he liked the idea. We started developing it, and then he moved over to editing the Batman titles, I think it was. So this moved over to another editor. But I wrote the scripts, and Mike Carlin, who was the editor, he got Mike Mignola, who had been working for Marvel previously, as had Carlin. So he pulled Mignola into it, and I'm very proud of these scripts. I mean, before a single line was drawn, I thought this just was one of those stories that came together well. All the pieces fit together and all the story things dovetailed, and it came out, just the story worked, and it was good. And then to see Mike Mignola and P. Craig Russell, do the art was just like, well, even if this story sucks, it's great now. It's become great because I've got Mignola. I've got this beautiful art. So good art can save a bad script. A great script cannot save bad art. So I was lucky. But
no, valid point.
I joke about it, but I was I was proud of this from the script on. So.
Oh, all right. And just to give, for those of you who may be listening to this, we are looking at a cover of the first of 4 within a 4-issue miniseries here of The Phantom Stranger by Paul Kupperberg, Mike Mignola, P. Greg Russell. Let's see here. The Heart of a Stranger is the title of the first one. So like I said, it's a 4-issue miniseries. I do have all 4 issues in my collection. So I'm happy to say that I
printed in the art, the DC art of Mike Mignola.
Yes, in the DC art of Mike Mignola. So big name there. So yeah, that's definitely great stuff, and I'm happy to have it in my collection. I got issues 2, 3, and 4 from one place, and then Ted Davies of TedDaviesArtistry.com was able to hook me up with issue number 1. So got the 4 issues, guys. No worries there. So with that being said, something that I definitely read and really enjoyed, aside from The Phantom Stranger, is this right here. Daring New Adventures of Supergirl. Granted, we're looking at the image of Volume 1, which is a trade paperback featuring this character by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Paul Kupperberg, Carmine Infantino, among others. So I got to ask you here, Paul. Daring New Adventures of Supergirl. What was it like working on this series for this character?
Well, again, I'm gonna fall back on my DC fan geekdom. Supergirl was I love Superman. But the reason I collected Action Comics specifically back in the olden days was for the Supergirl backup. It was I love that strip. It was one of the very few strips at DC at the time that was doing any kind of continuity. There were these threads that it wasn't tight continuity, but they would follow through and bring back characters and have ongoing situations. It was very tightly, it was just really a fun strip. So I love the character, and most of my stuff, I've worked almost exclusively for DC as far as the big 2 goes. But when I started reading comic books, Marvel didn't even exist. I was reading comic books a year or 2 before Fantastic Four #1 came out.
Wow.
So I was just imprinted with DC, and it's never left me. But. So this was one of those characters that, holy crap, I get to write Supergirl now, and I get to just pick her up and put her in a new situation, and I'm going to make her my own, which is kind of, the character's not mine because she's an ongoing serialized fiction character that I knew one day I was going to, you know, give up and somebody else would eventually, you know, write it past me. But, you know, it was just one of those things that it was a strip that I felt I could, you know, exercise some long-term, you know, planning and stuff on, and just enjoyed being able to kind of, you know, use the background that I knew so well also. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I gotta say, I absolutely loved reading this. I think the artwork is fantastic. I think the way it's written, everything that go, you know, it takes it really does. It takes a team to make something work. And in this case, for Supergirl, Daring New Adventures of Supergirl, to be more specific, fantastic. Absolutely love it. I mean, listen, I'm a big Superman fan. I love Superman to pieces, and I will continue to be a fan of Superman to the day I die. But I like Superman and the universe as a whole. But one of the other pieces of that universe is his cousin. And the cousin sometimes gets, you know, left in the sandbox, gets pushed to the side, maybe left in the shuffle. But at the same time, Supergirl has been, you know, in the 80s with Daring New Adventures of Supergirl. She's had appearances in many, you know, the animated series from Justice League to JLU. She appeared on Smallville, my favorite show. You know, she had her own show on the CW with Supergirl itself, and they did different adaptations of that character. So, I mean, Supergirl, I mean, yes, she's, you know, prominent now, but, you know, in the when this came out, I wish I were there when these things were coming out in the beginning, because I would have collected all the issues of Supergirl, like 100%. There's no question. I loved reading this.
Well, thank you. I loved writing it. It was just, you know, it was just, you know, any part of the Superman family I got to get my hands on was just, you know, special to me. You know, same with Superboy. I wrote him concurrent with Supergirl. As a matter of fact, at that time I was writing Supergirl, Superboy, issues of Action, Superman, and DC Comics Presents, and the syndicated newspaper strip.
Goodness.
So
gracious.
I was Superman out the wazoo.
That's a lot of members of the house. Well, that's a lot of things to keep track of within the House of L. So, so to speak. Once again, we are talking with veteran comic book writer and editor Paul Kupperberg here on And I Quote. Make sure you're sharing this with all 500 of your closest friends. They're going to like the way they look after watching or listening to this episode, I guarantee it. And also, if you have any stories or anything about the late great Neil Adams, or anything that you've enjoyed from Paul Kupperberg, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the live chat. Also, if you have any questions for Paul Kupperberg, let us know. We'll be more than happy to take them as we go throughout the course of the show. Show itself. Now, to fast forward, I'm sorry.
I promise not to take the fifth to any question.
There's that too. So fast forwarding a little bit to some of the more present, you know, some of the more modern day works that you've come out with, just to start off with a few of them here, if you don't mind. Sure. This one, the Paul Kupperberg's Illustrating Guide to Writing Comics. Boy, I wonder what this is about. But even so,
it's about 126 pages.
There you go.
And you know, it goes from there. Yeah, it was. You know, every now and then over the years, you know, like the previous 10, 12 years, when there was an internet to do this on, I would sometimes, you know, write little, you know, essays and columns or whatever for people about writing. You know, just stuff off the top of my head that I thought would be helpful. And, you know, after a while, you know, enough people said to me, you know, you should write a book. That I said, okay. And I gathered all that stuff together and wrote a book. So, you know, I just took it from my point of view. You know, I read a lot of writing comics books, and they're always talking about these other things, you know, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, or this storyline or that storyline. And it's like, well, you can analyze all you want these things, but you didn't write them. So how do you know what went on in the creation of these stories? You know, I started to do that. I was going to, you know, use these examples of all these great comic book stories. And I realized I can't speak to that. I wasn't in Denny O'Neil's head. I wasn't in, you know, Steve Englehart's head. I don't know why they did what they did. I do, however, know why I do what I do. Mm-hmm. So my point of view was, look, this is what I know, using examples from my work that I can explain to you. And, you know, these are the steps you need to take. However you want to take them is up to you. Just, this is how you do it. Figure out your own way. You know, there's no one way to write a comic book.
No, no, and I'm happy to say I own a copy of this, and I'm happy that I do. Helps me out when I'm trying to put stories together. So
Yeah, thank you.
it's a very, very good, useful, great resource to go to. Absolutely, that's where I was trying to go with that. So with this one, moving forward just a little bit more, JSA Ragnarok. Now, when I think of the word Ragnarok, I'm thinking, wait a minute, wasn't there an indie film that came out some years ago called Thor Ragnarok from the MCU? But then again, JSA has Ragnarok too. How did that come about?
JSA has been Ragnaroking since before there was a Thor. You know,
I did not know
JSA
that.
was dealing with. Well, no, I don't know if there was any Golden Age stories involving Ragnarok, but you know, Roy, when Roy was doing Justice Society of America for DC, Roy Thomas, he, that Roy, he, you know, he did this whole big storyline, the last days of the Justice League of the JSA, that involved, you know, the whole Ragnarok thing and Yedskadol, whatever the tree of life is called, you know. So and there, you know, there was the demon Surtur, Surtur. Yeah, and you know, and the JSA was brought into this dimension to fight Ragnarok over and over and over again. You know, so they're trapped. That was how post-crisis Roy got rid of the JSA. He stuck them in, right? Even though he should have just gotten rid of the JSA because that was the plan. Anyway, the original plan for Crisis on Infinite Earths was we will do it and then we will never mention it again. I think somebody didn't get the memo.
No.
But anyway, we had this. So we had that storyline, and in 2005, I was hired by iBooks, which is published by Byron Price, to write a JSA. Actually, it was a trilogy.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Jeff Johns provided an outline for the trilogy.
Sure. Yep.
And you know, I fleshed it out into the full plot, and I wrote Ragnarok, the first one. Actually, Ragnarok was the name of the story arc. I forget the title for this novel originally, but and the week I finished writing it, Byron was killed in a car accident. But I was told, you know, go ahead, don't worry, the company is still moving forward. We're still going to publish it. So I finished it. I turned it in, you know, the whole bit. And then the week that the book was scheduled to go to press, it was iBooks declared bankruptcy because apparently they couldn't run it without Byron because it was all in his head, which was a scary, dark place. But so anyway, this sat in a drawer for 15 years. I made attempts, you know, I tried getting in touch with the guy who acquired the iBooks inventory in the bankruptcy sale. And he wanted to do it, but he couldn't come to an agreement with DC and yada, yada. Anyway, so then it was just kind of, you know, done. So a couple of years ago, I started talking to them and said, you know, and worked out a way to just do a small little, you know, quiet little, just, yeah, go ahead, publish it. And, you know, so they let me go. So here it is. I was finally able to get it into print.
My goodness, what a journey from going from one place to the next. My goodness gracious, getting from point A to point B was a struggle. Well,
you know, it was a long time. It was, like I say, it was like
for the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Like 15 years. But, hey, that's, you know, it all paid off in the end.
Yes, it most certainly did. And congratulations to you and the team who were able to help put this together and put it together and all that jazz. So yeah, JSA Ragnarok. I gotta catch up on that one.
Yeah.
For sure. And moving forward another step or two, Paul Kupperberg wrote something known as SUPERTOWN. What exactly is SUPERTOWN?
SUPERTOWN is a what's classified as a juvenile literature, you know, juvenile whatever, you know, intermediate readers. It's a young reader's storybook. I mean, it's a full-length novel. You know, it's a big chunk of reading, but you know, I wrote it as a young adult, and and it was picked up by Heliosphere Books, excuse me. And it just came out a couple of months ago. It's available at bookstores and on Amazon. But it's a story about a kid who lives in a little town, Crumbly, New Jersey, which is kind of off the beaten track, and due to circumstances which get talked about and finally explained in the book, they have no internet and barely any internet and no cell phone service. It's just a cut off little town on the Jersey Shore. And this kid just wants to all he wants in his life is to be a superhero. He walks around town in a costume in case he happens to have a secret origin. And then it turns out a real superhero who is retiring and looking to get out of that rat race moves to town in a house he inherited, and the kid discovers who he is, and hilarity ensues.
There you go. Enough said. Congratulations on that. Definitely pick up a copy of that when you have the opportunity to do so. Have there been any other special memories for you from being at conventions, whether you were there as a vendor selling your books or whether you were there as an attendee, that stand out to you?
Oh yeah, there's a lot. Just meeting, just like I remember 2009, I think it was. Nick Cardy was at the New York Comic Convention. Brilliant artist from the Golden Age on. He was working for the Eisner Studio. Nicholas Viscardi. Back in the 40s, doing. He was part of the Spirit Sunday supplement. The strip he did, and moving forward, he just did all this wonderful stuff, and he did some runs in the 1960s on like Teen Titans. That were just stunning. There was just, and he did one issue in particular, was Teen Titans number 13. It was a Christmas issue, and it's set in a junkyard, and it's the art on it is just the best Nick Cardy art I had ever seen. Even back then when I picked it up, I went, "This is special. This story is different. I don't know why." Just absolutely stunning. And so finally in 2009, I had talked to Nick before professionally, at DC as an editor, but never brought this up. But finally, I see him at a convention in 2009. My son was with me. And I brought this for him to sign. And he, and I said, I think this was just probably the best thing you've ever drawn. And he said, he pretty much agreed with me. And I asked what happened. And he said, I had gone in and asked for a $2 a page raise, and they wouldn't give it to me. So I was going to quit DC. And this was the story on my drawing board when I decided to quit. So I was going to finish this up and make it the best damn job they've ever seen, so they'd regret what they were losing over $2 lousy a page. And he brought it into Murray Boltinoff, his editor. And Murray took a look at this thing and just said, and he told him, "This is it, I'm quitting." And Murray looked at it and just said, "Wait a minute." And he came back a few minutes later with Carmine Infantino saying, and they were old pals. They knew each other from, I think they went to high school together.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, Nicky, don't quit. You stay here. Things are changing soon. And believe me, you'll get your raise, So Cardy stuck around, and he went on to do these brilliant covers. Carmen became cover editor and up into upper management, and so he did all this great stuff, all this great work over the years. But that was the reason behind that story. So a moment like that is like crap. That's a memory. It's little things. Getting to sit in the Batcopter. Being able to sit in the Batmobile. I mean, come on, like you didn't, if you were a kid in 1966 and we're watching Batman, to think one day I'm going to be sitting in the real Batcopter, or the real Batmobile. It's just like, wow, incredible. It happens all the time, just people I meet. Another, I think it was, around 2010, I was at New York Comic Con
Sure.
Actually, two incidents from that one show.
Oh.
The first one is I'm sitting at the Archie booth. I was writing Life with Archie at the time.
Mhm.
So I'm sitting at the Archie booth doing a signing,
Mhm.
and Tony Isabella walks by with
Mm-hmm.
somebody, an older gentleman. And you know, I've known Tony since forever. We go back to fandom together in the early '70s. So yeah, hey Tony, how you doing? You know, but we're both busy, and you know. And about 2 minutes later, the older gentleman Tony was with circles back, and comes to the table and says, "I'm so sorry, Paul. I didn't recognize you." And it was Joe Sinnott. Joe Sinnott came over to the car. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. Tony told me who you were. I didn't recognize you." And I didn't have, and I was so touched by it, I didn't have the heart to tell him that we had never met before. Yeah, he may have been confusing me with my brother or something. I don't know, or just the name. But just the fact that this man, Joe freaking Sinnott, would take even a minute just to come back and say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to, not say hi when you." And at that same show, I'm just getting off the side. It may have even been mere minutes later. I'm getting off the signing, and Michael Uslan walks by, the producer of the Batman movies now. But he started out at DC in the as like Joe Kubert's assistant and driving the comic mobile in New Jersey back in the early '70s. And I knew him from back then. He was one of the what do you call it? I'm forgetting the name. There was a bunch of young the Woodchucks, the DC Woodchucks. There was Paul Levitz and Alan Asherman and this guy. And anyway, so there's Michael, and we stop and we're talking. And then Barbara Zakis comes by, who was another junior Woodchuck, and we're all talking. And then suddenly from this direction comes Alan Asherman, who was another one of the junior Woodchucks. And then, oh wait, there's John Workman. And all of a sudden there's this junior Woodchuck moment, this reunion. And I'm just like, and I wasn't a Woodchuck. I was Woodchuck adjacent, but it's just, I was like standing there with all these guys who were just like, from the early '70s and then we realized that, all these guys had been like Joe Kubert's assistant at some point in those days. And Joe was doing a signing over at wherever. So we all trooped over and came up behind Joe where he was doing the signing. And Bob Razakis goes, "Excuse me, Mr. Kubert, do you think we could make it in comic books?" And Joe and he turns around and looks, and he sees all these old men who he knew like as kids, back, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And this, I'm going to cry. This big grin breaks out on his face. And he just, and he just goes, "Yeah, I think if you try." And he looked at me and he said, "But not you." Joe had been my editor, on ARION Lord of Atlantis for a while. But, it's like, it's an amazing moment. Anyway.
No, for sure. And thank you for sharing those stories with us. We do greatly appreciate it here on the show. No question about it. What advice would you give to aspiring writers out there?
Right. I can't tell you. I don't have any idea how to break into the business these days because I've been trying and I can't do it. But just write, man. Just, I published, I did a book of essays and things about writing and the writing business called I Never Write for the Money, but I Always Turn in the Manuscript for the Check. And it's true. Don't, you're not, making money is important. Of course, that's what you need to do that with your life, but that's not the reason. It's the reason you're an artist, but it's not the reason you're doing the art. The art you're doing for the art, whatever it is. You're writing that story for the sake of getting that story and making it the best story you can make it. After it's all done, then it's like, okay, you turn it in and somebody pays you. That's great. But you can't think about that when, I have, over the years, every now and then, people come to me with a project that I want to do and it's a lousy page rate, but I'll do it anyway because I want to do the project. I don't think about the fact that I'm not getting my full rate on this. I'm still going to do the best I can with it, because that's my name's on it. Nobody's, if they read a bad story that I wrote quickly and poorly because I wasn't getting paid much, they're not going to say, "Oh, I guess he wasn't getting paid enough to." They're just going to read a bad story. So, but that's it. That's the most important thing. You just write, keep learning. Listen to advice. When somebody tells you you're doing something wrong, don't argue with them. Shut up and listen. Even if you don't agree, you may pick up some advice from that person or not, but a reader giving you their opinion is an important thing. You don't have to agree with it. In fact, that's why you're asking them for an opinion. So it's just, that's it. Do it.
Sure. Right on, my man. Once again, we're talking with veteran comic book writer and editor Paul Kupperberg here on And I Quote. Once again, make sure you're sharing this with all 700 of your closest friends. They're going to like the way they look after watching or listening to this episode.
My hair looks glossier, by the way, since I've started this podcast. So wow. I know what you're saying is true.
It's big. I know, right? I only speak the truth. I'm saying this. So if you have any questions for Paul Kupperberg as we go throughout the course of this program, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the live chat. Our producer's going to keep an eye on as we go throughout the course of the show. Who would you say are some of your favorite writers of today?
I don't know. I don't read comic books anymore. I haven't read.
It's okay.
No, once I had to start paying for them, is like the deal's off.
It's a bit of a different story, but a bit of a segue to that. How many single issue comics do you have in your collection? Thousands, hundreds of thousands?
No, I am since my divorce in 2009. I have been on a campaign to lighten my load. So I have been getting rid of stuff rather than acquiring. I have whatever I own is on these bookcases in this room, and half of these shelves are my own stuff. So I don't have a lot anymore. I don't, I kept some reprints of stuff that I liked. I kept most of my 80-page Giants because it was the best comic book ever published. But, most other than that, I don't need that stuff. And, because I realize I'm old and I don't need to drag that shit with me for the rest of my life.
Completely understandable. And we want to let you know that this episode of And I Quote and every episode of And I Quote is indeed powered by Poddex. Now, Poddex are the hottest new tool for podcasters looking to have more meaningful conversations or simply gamify their podcasts. All you do is shuffle up the cards, you ask a question, and you let the content roll. Get yours today at poddex.com and use the promo code Ryan10. That's RYAN10. Ryan10. It's all one word for 10% off your order. You're not going to miss out on that at poddex.com. So, Paul, first things first, what's the biggest lie you once believed was true?
That Republicans were human. No, wait, that's not it.
Might be a different subject matter for a different kind of show.
Yes.
But that's okay.
I don't really have those. I grew up skeptical from very early on because again things were tough at home, and so I was always very hard to come to trust and to believe readily without any kind of backup and validation to the source. So I'm still very skeptical. I don't believe anything I hear until I want it verified. I want to know what's going on. So I don't really, I can't think of any kind of thing like that it's like, oh, you mean the earth isn't flat? Wait.
I mean, anything's possible. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's okay. No, it's, hey, if you got an answer, you got an answer. If you don't, you don't. It's fine too. But what is the main thing that influences your decisions? What do you think?
Self-interest, like everybody else in the world.
There you go. That sounds about right. Right. Yeah, we're sure about that, producers. Sure.
Yeah.
Which magazine would you like to be on the cover of?
You're using Pod Deck, aren't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm asking the questions brought to you by our good friends at Poddex. Yes.
I understand you're powered by them, and I feel empowered by them.
Oh, I don't mean to make it come off that way, but it's not my intent.
No, believe me.
We're just having fun here in the studio. That's what we try to do on this show.
I'm having fun too, mocking you.
That's okay.
I'm kidding.
I'm used to being mocked.
That's what was the question again?
Yeah, what was that question? The question was, what magazine would you like to be on the cover of? That was the question.
That was the question.
What magazine would you like to be on the cover of? Does one of them stand out to you?
Nah, I mean, Time magazine used to be cool, but I don't know.
Maybe not so much anymore.
Nah. So,
nah.
Playboy.
Oh, geez. That once again, whole other discussion for a whole different show.
Architectural Digest. There you
yes.
go. That's the magazine. I want to be
sitting
on a nice sofa with a nice arrangement of flowers on a coffee table you can't put your feet on. Sipping a Dr. Pepper.
That is a good point. You know what would make a great coffee table book? A coffee table book about coffee tables. Get it?
Yeah. Thank you, Kramer. Yes.
Sorry, I can't help it. It's my favorite sitcom. It happens. It happens. But
I hear you.
It's all good. But what's
in my
the
top?
next thing? I'm sorry?
It's in my top favorites. Sure.
Hey. All right, we're getting somewhere. See, this is why you and I are good friends. So, well, now we are. So that's a behind the scenes thing. But what's the most...
What? No, go ahead.
Exactly. What's the most annoying bill that you have to pay?
Oh, cable. Well,
there you go.
See, it's a generational thing.
It is.
You pay for TV? No. You buy your TV, you turn it on, the channels come to you. You're young. You've never lived in a pre-cable world, in a no cable world. I grew up, we had channel 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 13, 11, 13. And if we were lucky and it was a cloudy day, we could pick up UHF from New Jersey, which is not lucky because anything from Jersey, come on. But that was it. That was all we had to choose from, which is why, back in those days. Well, I think there was something positive about that too. It was a thing that brought families together. I hate to sound, but there was only one TV in the house, and and you watch what mom and dad wanted to watch primarily. So as a result, the Ed Sullivan Show was kind of a touchstone for culture in those days. It was a variety show on Sunday nights, and Sullivan was a stiff, but he brought on. He wasn't the first person to show the Beatles in the U.S. He just took credit for it. But still, he had the Beatles on. He had, and he'd have the Balanchine, I don't know if they were an orchestra or dance troupe. But anyway, he would have all kinds of acts on. He would have my parents' generation stuff, my grandparents' generation stuff, and stuff for us. I first saw the Doors on Ed Sullivan. I first saw the Rolling Stones on Ed Sullivan.
Oh my gosh!
But the whole family saw it, and we all knew what So everybody was able to share a common culture. And now no two people in a household are watching the same thing at a given time. Let alone parents and kids. So everybody's lost touch and drifted apart. It's the explosion of the nuclear family.
Coming through to the other side. That's the Doors. Just quick sound bite excuse me there for you once again. Gee willikers, where am I going with this? So I know, going completely off the rails. Even so, I'm just curious, there's an event coming up in a few months. It happens every year, and it happens in the month of July, specifically July 15th through the 17th of 2022, something known as Shore Leave. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, are you or other members of the Crazy 8 press team going to have a presence at Shore Leave this summer?
I will not be there, but yes, members of Crazy 8 will definitely be there and have a very big part in the proceedings. They're always Crazy 8 Press was formed. The idea was birthed at Shore Leave years ago, and so it's a special place for them. Again, I wasn't part of the original, and Shore Leave is more of a Star Trek leaning show, and I haven't done much Star Trek. I wrote a couple of issues of the comic and a novella for one of the Star Trek franchise series, but so it's not my place because that many people dressed as Klingons give me hives.
Fair enough. So yeah, Shore Leave's coming up July 15th through the 17th, 2022 at the Delta Marriott Hotel in Hunt Valley, Maryland. To be more specific, so make sure you go to www.shore-leave.com. Myself, other members of the Nerd Culture crew are going to have a presence there at Shore Leave this summer. We're going to be on the press corps, so we'll have some fun moseying around.
The Klingons for me, sure.
Yeah, I'd say how to exactly. Do I look like a guy who can speak Klingon? No, I can't. I did become a Trekkie during the lockdown, so I know a few things, but I don't know everything there is to know yet because I haven't seen all 70,000 seasons of whether it's TOS, TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, all the stuff that's going on right now, whether it's Discovery or Picard, even though Picard's my favorite captain. Haven't seen it yet, so I'm a little behind the 8 ball.
Well, my relationship with Star Trek pretty much ended after the original series. So, I've seen some of the movies and all that, but I've never. I'm not a big science fiction. That kind of science fiction fan. Sure. I read a lot of science fiction in the 60s and 70s. Growing up. But Arthur C. Clarke and this guy and that guy and Asimov and whatever, Silverberg, but that stuff was not really my cup of tea. I just I'm not a big fan, still not a big fan of science fiction movies, horror movies, certainly not horror movies. It's like, this is what I do for a living. Nothing, you're not going to surprise me.
Some things aren't for everybody.
And believe me, I'm sicker than you are, no matter what you're putting on the screen. So,
so
so that stuff has never really been in. I mean, I do it. It's like I joked. I wrote this Star Trek novella for a franchise called Special Corps of Engineers. It was a whole series of ebooks, and then they published them as these big, thick volumes with several novellas. And I joked, well, I wrote a science fiction story, and then I gave it to my friend Bob Greenberger to add Star Trek. So it's like, if I call this that, and it's really supposed to be that, please correct that. Throw in some alien races or galaxies or universes or whatever. And by the time he was done, it was a Star Trek story.
And there you go. Some things aren't for everybody, and hey, you know what you know, and you you enjoy what you enjoy. There's nothing wrong with that. But since unfortunately you're not going to be making an appearance at Shore Leave, which bums me out personally, because I was going to have you sign the Phantom Stranger and the Supergirl. Well,
if you're
paperback.
You're going to be at Terrificon in Connecticut.
Well, I did make some new friends recently that live in Connecticut, so. Could hypothetically, I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, meet up with my friends, as well as take them over to the Comic-Con and meet you. So, that actually segues into another question. What upcoming appearances do you have coming up this year or into next year? What Comic-Cons are you going to be present at?
Yeah, we just covered it.
So just Terrificon, that's it?
Yeah.
What about Farpoint next year?
No, again, another Star Trek thing.
Too much sci-fi for you.
What really gets me is like going down to the bar at night and seeing what goes on there. It's kind of creepy.
So it's a little too much for you. That's okay.
A little too much. It's just all these costume people on the make. It's just like, I don't know. This is like, take off that prosthetic before you talk to me. I don't know. It's just me again.
So, yeah. Hey, you know what they say? To each their own.
I do indeed. And I don't begrudge anything to anybody. Whatever you like, please like. Whatever I like, I will continue to like. And
And when is the event in Connecticut? When is that taking place?
It is the
Is it this summer or is it in the fall?
yeah. It's July 30th through August 2nd, I think. Whatever that
Oh,
weekend
so
is.
it's, oh my gosh, that's 2 weeks after shore leave. Goodness gracious. Okay. I'll sit. I mean, I can't make any promises, but I would like to have you
I'm
sign.
going whether you're there or not. So
No, that's great. I'm just saying, like, I would like to have you sign a few things
I
if
would-
possible.
I would love to do it if when next we meet.
Especially the Supergirl paperback. I want you to sign that. That would be nice because I'm a big Supergirl fan. So
I appreciate that.
I'm just throwing it out there. So yeah, there you go. If anyone's going to be in that area in the state of Connecticut, Terrificon, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Terrificon at the Mohegan Sun Convention Center.
There it is. There's the venue. That was going to be my next question. Where exactly? We need a venue for this. So
I just had lunch with the with Mitch Hallock.
oh, did you?
The cons.
The runner, the guy who runs it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's nice. That's
Well,
all.
I'm a perpetual guest at Terrificon. I have been to all of them, and so.
Well, that is just wonderful. Fan-flippin-tastic. Well, we want to take this opportunity to thank Paul Kupperberg for being our guest this week on this episode of And I Quote. We greatly appreciate it, Paul. Where can the person watching or listening to this episode find you online and everything that you have coming up? What do you got?
Well, I am on Facebook, Paul Kupperberg, and at Paul Kupperberg on Twitter. And my website is paulkupperberg.com, just to keep it simple. And I'm usually out there blabbing about stuff. There are links to buy my books either directly from me. I will personalize and autograph them, or you can get them on Amazon.com. And make me a happy man.
Absolutely. Once again, thank you so much, Paul Kupperberg, for being our guest
A lot of fun
this week on And I Quote. Brian K. Morris chimes in with the last word. He says, as you're always saying, Ryan, shared. Everyone buy Paul's book on writing comics. It should be required reading for all comic scripters.
Hello, that's what I've been telling people. Thank you.
Go. Wonderful man, Brian K. Morris is. Make sure you check out Brian K. Morris on social media, or online, I should say, at risingtide.pub, more specifically enough. Definitely check him out. Once again, thank you to Paul Kupperberg for being with us on this week's episode of And I Quote. My name is Ryan. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5 for all the latest projects, all the latest podcasts that I'm doing. Once again, And I Quote is on Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. Smash the notification bell so you get notified of when new videos go up. Also, we want to let you know that if you want some killer looking swag, go to theradbear.com, the best nerd brand on the planet. Put in that promo code Ryan10, that's RYAN10, Ryan10 for 10% off your order. You want some cool swag from the properties such as Power Rangers? They got it. You want something from the Neverending Story from the 80s? They got it. You want something featuring your favorite characters in the universe known as anime? They got something for that too. So make sure you check them out. Once again, that's theradbear.com, Ryan10, 10% off your order. Not going to miss out on that. Also, we want to let you in on something. Special events coming up next week. We have not one, but two, double whammy. Two influential films are celebrating their 20th and 10th anniversaries, respectively, on Tuesday, May the 3rd. It is going to be the 20th anniversary of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man from 2002. My goodness gracious, how time flies. And then on Wednesday, May 4th, even though it may be a certain day concerning a certain property that's been around for many, many decades, it's also the 10th anniversary of this film, Marvel's The Avengers. That's right, the very first Avengers film that takes place within the Marvel Cinematic Universe turns 10, a decade. Can you believe that? I can't. Anywho, these are going to be on Tuesday, May the 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and on Wednesday, May the 4th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have special guests joining us from any and all corners of the podcasting universe. Trust me when I tell you, you are not going to miss out on this. So assemble your team, bring them to the show in the live chat, in the comments section on Tuesday, May the 3rd, and Wednesday, May the 4th, both respectively at 8 p.m. EST. Oh my goodness, it's going to be amazing and marvelous to celebrate the anniversaries of those two influential films. Trust me, so many memories to share on those two. And I'm sure you have a favorite memory of those films as well. Make sure you share them in the comments when we go live. That's why I keep telling you, subscribe to the channel, smash that notification bell so you get notified of when these things go up and they go live. That's what I'm saying. Oh, goodness gracious. So many things are happening. So many incredible things are coming our way very, very soon. And we want to say thank you once again to being a part of this show. You are what make this all worth it. We put these shows on for you. Once again, my name is Ryan. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. And in the meantime, stay healthy, stay strong, stay safe, and life is better when reading. Take a look.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Join author Gary Zeiger for an animatic short film based on his Breakaway Stingray novel series. Watch this animatic short based on the novel Stingray, You Can't Hide Forever at stingrayseries.com. In Stingray, You Can't Hide Forever, Captain Epsilon is putting the band back together to rescue his protege's little sister from the evil conglomerate, while keeping his state-of-the-art warship Stingray out of their hands. Watch as the adventure unfolds in the groundbreaking animatic short at stingrayseries.com. Then, join the crew of Stingray with the next novel in the series, Stingray Prophecy, where Captain Epsilon and Dr. Zubre are pivotal players in an ancient prophecy. Can they reunite the people of two worlds before they destroy each other? To learn more, visit stingrayseries.com.
Secrets. Trust. Worth. The bond between souls intertwined within otherworldly intrigue. Michaela Jade brings forth the Elite Warrior series, a collection of dark fantasy romance novels set in a twisted world where power lusts in the hearts of men and devotion seduces the souls of women. Warrior's Secret. Warrior's Trust. And Warrior's Worth. Available now at authormichaelajade.com.